In this video, I'll talk about Ruby's Singleton class. Many people think Singleton class is a really advanced feature of Ruby and will seldom use it. But actually, it's just Ruby's another mechanism to allow for dynamic programming. Before we dive into Ruby's Singleton class, let me give you a brief review of Ruby's class hierarchy and method lookup. So here we've got two Ruby's built-in classes. At the top, there's the basic object class, which is added after Ruby 1.9.2. It's now the ultimate ancestor of all the other classes in Ruby. And below the basic object class is what we've been very familiar with, the object class. Object class is what we'll use frequently in our daily programming because, like many other object-oriented languages, Ruby allows you to define your own class. And if you don't explicitly define the superclass of your own class, it's gonna inherit the object class. So now let's define a class called foo. Being the subclass of the object class, foo inherits all the class methods and instance methods from object class. For all the methods that are inherited from the object class, foo can either leave what it was or it can override that method. And it can also enrich its method pool by adding more methods. Now we have our own class. To make use of it, we need to create instances. Now let's create an instance called bar of foo class. As an instance of foo class, bar can be the receiver of all the instance methods in foo. For example, if we have an instance method called showMyName in foo, we can send that method call to bar. And when the Ruby interpreter sees that, it will first go into foo class and look for that method. If it finds it there, it will execute it. If it cannot find it in the foo class, it will continue looking into foo's superclasses along the class hierarchy until it finds that method, or call method missing if it cannot find the method along the path. We know all the instance methods of a class can be shared among all its instances, which means the instances of the same class would have similar behaviors. But what if we want some of the instances to have their unique behaviors that does not belong to any other instances? Fortunately, Ruby allows us to achieve this by using singleton methods. Singleton methods are those methods that can be defined on instances and can only be called on the instances on which they are defined. If you try to call singleton methods on any other instance, you are probably gonna end up with no method error. Another Ruby knowledge of methods is that all the methods are defined in class. So the singleton methods of an instance must also be added to its class. But if that is the case, the singleton methods can also be shared by any other instances. So there must be some place else where singleton methods are housed. The truth is, whenever a singleton method is defined for an instance, Ruby will add an extra class which is inserted between the instance and its original class. And this extra class is the singleton class, and this is where the singleton methods of that instance is housed. So whenever a singleton method is called on its instance, Ruby interpreter will first go into the singleton class and will find the method there. So this is how the singleton class is used. So there are actually two ways to define a singleton method. The first approach is very similar to defining a class method, except you replace the class name with the instance name. The first approach is shown in the green area at the left-hand side. The second approach, which is shown in the green area at the right-hand side, uses the class keyword followed by two less than symbols, which is then followed by the instance name. All the singleton methods of the instance are wrapped up in this structure. The second approach opens the singleton class directly. So at this point, I think you got the basic idea of Ruby's singleton class and singleton methods. I've shown you when singleton class is created and how to define the singleton methods. This could be the end of this tutorial, but if I do that, you'll miss out a whole lot of extra knowledges of Ruby's singleton class. With these knowledges, you'll have a totally new understanding of Ruby's class and instances. So first let's take a look at two method definitions. The one on the left-hand side is a class method definition, and the one on the right-hand side is a singleton method definition. These are two different kind of method definitions, but they actually look very similar. They all starts with, of course, the def keyword, which is then followed by something that represents the class or the instance, which is then followed by the dot and the method name. This similarity might give you some hints on the relationship between Ruby class and instance. The truth about Ruby is, in Ruby there's no such thing called class. All the Ruby classes are actually objects that are instantiated from a specific class, which is called class. Those class names, like the A here, are just constants that point to the objects instantiated from the class. Now we know that Ruby classes are actually objects. So as objects, classes can have their own singleton methods. In fact, what we commonly know as class methods are nothing more than singleton methods for classes. Before we introduce singleton class, there are two approaches to define class methods. You can either use the class keyword, the self keyword, or the class name. But now we have a third way to define a class method. That is, within the class definition, you open the singleton class for that class, and then you define singleton methods within the singleton class of that class. So for this example here, we define three class methods using three different approaches. So if you call singleton methods method on A, it's gonna return the three class methods we just defined.